Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Wake Up with Jenny and Friends. I am your host, as always, Jenny, and I'm so excited today because I have two lovely ladies joining me to co-host. I have Jen, another Jen, and Megan from Travel Mugs. Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to
Great.
be here.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay? I just want to make
We
sure the
definitely
audio
can.
is
Yep.
good. Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Yep, definitely.
Well, thanks for joining me, ladies. This is exciting. I came across your page, and if anyone knows me, my first thing is I'm a foodie. The second thing is I love travel stuff. So when I saw your page, I was like, oh, I have to talk to these ladies.
We love those things too.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. And I loved your posts like on the East Coast because I just love the East Coast. So beautiful. So why don't you tell everybody what you're all about, how Travel Mugs started, introduce yourselves, give us the goods on you, ladies.
Yes,
Jennifer, you can go.
of course. So hey, I'm Jen. So I started my travel blog, We'll Save for Travel, back in 2017. So I talk about travel and personal finance and kind of how that goes together on my blog. And so when we launched our blog, I was paying off $26,000 in debt. And I really wanted to pay it off so that I could have money to travel. So that was like my primary motivation for paying off the debt. And so I've been blogging ever since then. Megan and I met super randomly in a Facebook group, um, in a Facebook group for Lululemon.
Of all things. Oh, my camera
Not
just fell.
even kidding.
Live TV.
It was so funny. So we met randomly and then we kind of like kept in touch. And I wanted to launch a podcast and I really wanted a co-host. So I messaged Megan and we had met one time in person. And I was like, hey, do you want to start a podcast with me? And she like did not answer me for like a long time.
I was like, that's a strange idea, strange girl. I don't really know.
You were pre-ghosted.
Pretty much.
It was so funny. Like, Megan, when you messaged me back, you're like, I'm interested, but I need to think about it. And so you did. And this was like early 2020. And then March 2020, Megan messaged me and was like, yeah, like let's meet up and talk about this. And we did. And it was like literally, I think a day before COVID like shut down our province, which was like really crazy. So we started this project. We launched in June of 2020. And it's been really great. Like I love it so much. We have a lot of fun. We talk about travel. We talk a lot about traveling on the East Coast because that's where we are on the East Coast, Canada and Nova Scotia. But we talk about other destinations and kind of like other travel related stuff. And as you can imagine, I love travel. Like that's my passion. And so some of my favorite places have been London, England. My husband and I went there on our honeymoon and we
Oh, it's
had
nice there. Yeah.
amazing time. Iceland. I know Megan and I have a big passion for Iceland. We love it there. And then New York City is one of my favorite places as well. And then my husband and I are huge Disney fans. So we usually go to Florida once a year. It's been a little while now since
Got
we've
my
been there.
Disney mug, so there we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
Love it.
Apropos.
It is. Yeah, we love Disney. So we're hoping to get back there real soon.
Yeah, it's starting to open up a little bit down there. So yeah, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
you guys are you guys out of the bubble now? Or are you guys?
Yeah, it's still a bit restricted, but it's
Mhm.
definitely better than it was. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping definitely 2022. I'm hoping Megan and I will be on a plane somewhere, hopefully.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
I hope so. So yeah, that's kind of our backstory. In terms of like how Jen and I met. For me personally, like outside of the podcast, I'm a recruiter actually, in the finance world. So this is very different from sort of what I do in my like regular work life. My husband and I also started a travel blog, which is kind of how Jen and I reconnected because I knew she had one and I wanted to get tips and tricks and stuff. It's Let's Get Tripsy. Honestly, we started in 2018. probably since late last summer, we haven't done a ton with it. I think COVID just sort of made us feel, like
Mm.
we're just like, we don't have the mindset to do this, even though we were traveling like intra-provincially and locally. We just weren't feeling it. So we'll see where that takes us. So thank goodness I have this podcast baby that Jen and I have, that I can still be really involved with travel. I didn't always have the travel bug. I'm from a very small town in Nova Scotia. So getting outside of that always seemed to take a lot. So I never really
Right.
even flew on a plane till like the summer before grade 9. The next time I was on a plane was grade 12. So honestly, late in high school. And then since then, I guess it's just sort of steadily grown over time. My husband loves to travel as well. So that's been really helpful in terms of keeping with it. And I would say, yeah, Iceland is a shared passion for sure with Jen and I. My husband loves it there. Our most recent trip before COVID was Ireland. That was summer of
Oh,
2019.
nice.
We've done a lot of like South. We do resort travel a lot, but we also sort of do Europe. We enjoy all of it, and a lot of the U.S. I've traveled a lot there. My favorite places, I would say, being Chicago and Bar Harbor, Maine. We actually go to Bar Harbor, Maine like twice a year. We're sort of obsessed, low key. And then today, actually, I just rebooked our flights for the third time for next June for Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. So
Oh, wow,
if I
that's a
don't get
big
on a
trip.
plane in June of 2022, I don't know, like that, I'm going to lose my credit.
Right.
And B, I mean,
Right,
I'm
with your
just not
mind.
going to bother to try to rebook it. So that's where we're at with that.
Yeah, it's been a finicky thing traveling, around this year. I was fortunate enough earlier in the year, just when COVID hit, I was able to get on over to Florida, which was great, and I love it there. But it's travel has been really even within our own provinces. It's which I didn't. I have to say I really didn't understand that too much. I
No.
was not. I mean, I could understand for a warranted period of time, not traveling to another country, but to be able to travel within your own provinces, not being able to do that just seemed a little bit ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Well, even earlier this year, some of the things I was like April, May here in Nova Scotia, there was a big outbreak and we were locked down again. And you would actually like I live in Halifax, and
Mhm.
if and Jen was living here, no, you had just moved, I
No,
think.
I had just moved. Yeah.
Yeah, and in Halifax, if you left our county, you could be fined. Like they were
It was
super
crazy.
serious. And we like snuck to the county line and like stayed in an Airbnb. Like our toe could have gone over, but we were like, just don't cross the line. But
Right.
it was crazy. And I think that was the hardest part in terms of this last lockdown, because we kind of thought we were past all that and we weren't. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it was just like a dose of reality. And I think with travel now, the hardest thing I have found is that it's hard to be excited for it,
Yeah.
because you can plan, but there's always that if we make it, well, what
Yeah.
if it doesn't happen? And like even rebooking these flights today, my husband's just like, all right, I guess we'll rebook all the same hotels we wanted to stay in
Right.
before and
Yeah.
the same like, but there's always a caveat now. So it's hard to be excited. And that's kind of the bummer that I'm experiencing, I would say, right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to because every place is different too. Everyone has a different protocol, and it's hard to keep track of that, especially if you're doing like a multi-stop trip, like you said,
Yeah.
Germany, Switzerland, and where was it, Austria, you said?
Yeah.
That's hard to sort of navigate, what applies to where, and it's just and it seems to change kind of at a moment's
Yeah.
notice with no real rhyme or reason behind it, just
Yeah.
the overarching theme of pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. But yeah, traveling is just one of those things, eh? Like you either love to travel or you don't.
I
Like,
think
where
so.
did that? Because I know people who don't travel, and I
Yeah.
like that blows my mind. Like,
Yeah.
and not because they can't or they can't afford it or they can't, that we'll talk about that, a little bit later. But um, they just have no desire to travel outside of where they are, and like, I mean, to each their own. But for me, that's just blows my mind that you would not want to see other parts of the world, or even just beyond your local city, town,
Yeah.
province, what have you, you know?
Yeah.
Where did that come from for you, Jen, for that taste for travel? Where do you?
My dad married my stepmom when I was 7, and she was a travel agent. And so they traveled quite a bit without us, without me and my brother. But
They're
you
like,
know,
bye kids. See you
yes,
later.
they did. I desperately wanted to go down south with them, and they were like, no.
Oh.
But they took us. My first trip was actually with my mom and my stepdad. We went to Texas to visit some family. And it was a funny experience because it was just after 9/11. So like the
Oh,
airport
wow.
security and everything was just, I didn't know any different, of course, because I hadn't traveled before, but now I look back, I'm like, wow.
Mhm.
And so we went to Texas, and then a couple years later, my dad and stepmom took us to Disney. And I don't know, it just sort of like slowly grew out of traveling. And my family loves to travel. And so them like talking about it, and honestly, like travel shows like on TV also. My
Mhm.
husband and I really loved Departures, which was on quite a few years ago now, but it just inspired us to like look at a lot of different places that we hadn't considered before. And yeah, I think that's probably like our number one source of inspiration right now, is like we love to watch travel shows on Netflix or whatever, and see different places, and read other travel blogs and talk to other people about travel. And yeah.
Yeah, I bet that was a fun time getting through that airport around that time.
I can't, like, they opened up your like checked luggage and searched it like by hand. And I just can't even imagine how much time that took. Like, I have no like concept of how long we were in that line for. I'm sure it was a very long time. And then I remember them making me turn on my CD Walkman to
Oh,
make sure.
goodness.
Oh my gosh. Who has a CD Walkman still in their back of their closet? Hands up.
Yeah.
Oh, ma.
I know the stress of that experience, and I've traveled to Africa a couple of times, and I have to say that is the most, it's not there's an element of danger
Right.
for where I was traveling to, but that actually, funnily enough, was not the scary part. The most stressful part was getting through that airport when I landed
Oh my
in
gosh.
said country of Africa. That
Wow.
was the most stressful thing ever, and it really makes you not want to go back.
Yeah.
But yeah, airport stress is crazy, and that was like on a relatively okay time to travel.
Yeah.
Never
Right.
mind with all that stuff going on, but
Yeah.
crazy. What about you?
Well, I was just going to say a few times in our lifetime, there's been things that have really changed travel. So obviously 9/11, I actually worked in the travel industry for 8 years.
Oh wow, okay.
And I was working in the industry for corporate travel at that time. So that I saw it happen, and what was happening behind the scenes in terms of the chaos it caused business travelers at the time, but also the whole liquids incident. I guess it was something in a Gatorade
Right.
bottle or whatever it was. That was another incident that actually really changed things for us. And so there's been major incidents in terms of like seeing all the progressions of travel. And now, I mean, I haven't flew since COVID, but that will just be another added layer of like vaccine checking and whatever the case might be. And it's just another thing. Like, I think back to when I flew in the 90s to someone I was dating at the time, lived in Los Angeles. And when I flew there, he actually met me at the gate. Like, now my
Yeah.
brain is just like, what
Remember when you could do that?
what even is that? I mean, I know, Jen, you were like 8 at that time, but like, I mean, for me in my 20s, it's crazy to think of that. And I guess whenever you're in a simpler time, you don't realize it. Like, I think back now to pre-COVID and how I took advantage of just breathing the air in a grocery store and didn't know that that could not be a thing. And I guess with travel, especially, you forget there were much simpler times and how much things have changed. So I don't know, like, I think about that sometimes, and I'm like, well, maybe now we need to take advantage of what is actually happening now, because who knows what will happen later. It's a lot to think about in regards to the differences in travel over the years.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. How do you see that sort of foregoing the next, say, 2 5 years, having been in the travel industry and been in finance, how do you see those little changes really affect? I mean, it's going to affect time time to
Oh,
travel for sure. I mean,
it
people are
is.
people are getting to the airport 3 hours, 4 hours ahead and still not making their flights now because everything's taking an exorbitant amount of time to get through the gates. But how do those little things sort of impact your lives as travelers and sort of the travel world, do you think?
I think in terms, I still have friends that work in travel, and it's again a lot of more corporate travel.
Mm.
But the way I've seen it in terms of that piece of travel, so not leisure, but the opposite, is that I think people are doing a lot more of like what we're doing today over Zoom, etc. And I think that that's going to be saving companies. I can't imagine them, honestly, the money that was saved by organizations during the pandemic. And I think a lot of lessons will be taken away from that.
Mm.
I do think in terms of leisure travel, I think for the foreseeable future, because I really don't think that regular travelers, especially like myself, we haven't gone back out there yet. Like there hasn't been those opportunities. So I think once everyone is truly back out there, I just think it's going to be time consuming. And I think that a lot of patience, which I am always super low on, a lot of patience needs to be had.
We
And
could talk about that
understanding.
later if you want.
Yeah. Oh gosh, if I can wait. I don't even know if I can
Yeah.
wait. Um, but like I think we all just have to remember to be kind. Everybody is just
Mm.
trying to do their best, whether it's airport staff, flight attendants, whoever it is. I think we just have to make sure that we're keeping all of those things in mind, because the world when we get back out there is going to be different. And you mentioned at the top too how there's really different regulations everywhere.
Mhm.
And that's something we're also going to have to, I feel, really be really patient with, because last year we're like, well, we don't want to go to Europe if we have to go everywhere and wear a mask. Like we're just not going, we want to
Right.
wait till things are normal. So here we are in 2021 and we're like kind of thinking the same thing. So now we're booking for 2022 and we're like, I don't care what I have to do. I
Right,
don't
right.
care what I have to like wear on my face. I don't care what I have to show people. I want to go. So I think the evolution is going to be interesting. And I think over time, as we get to maybe endemic, I think they're calling it, and past that, I think
Mhm.
things will become a little bit smoother, but I think it's here for a while personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jen, what do you think about sort of the, because it feels like there's sort of a thin line for the travel industry, countries need tourism, right?
Yeah.
They depend on a certain to a certain degree, depend on people traveling to their countries. So where's that sort of that line and that navigation between, you know, being strict with the rules, but having sort of kind of a loophole, maybe, if you will, or an open door to allow people to travel? Because I mean, it's kind of like restaurants down here. I don't know if it's like this in your area, but down here in the city in Ontario, people are just not really going to restaurants because there's so many stipulations. And our take is it's like, well, you need us, we don't need you. We can
Right.
cook at home, like, So where's that sort of that line for the travel industry, do you think, and for other
Yeah.
countries?
I think you're right. Like a lot of countries do depend on tourism, and Megan and I have talked about this a lot. And I think I'm comfortable going places and it's knowing what their COVID situation is like. Like I don't want to go to a place where their hospitals are completely overrun. Because if I get sick, I'm adding to their problem and I'm taking away, I don't want to take away a hospital bed from a local,
From a
and
local,
I
yeah.
shouldn't be there, right?
Mm.
So I think it is like striking a balance between like supporting places that need tourism and like not being a detriment to their society, because I can't take a bed away from a local. Like that's just so horrible. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, and I think people here, like I think people are going out to restaurants. I was
Oh
out
yeah.
this weekend and they were quite busy. Like we had to wait for a table.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that once in the next like 6 months, hopefully things start to like quiet down a bit and we'll be able to travel a little bit more comfortably. And like Canada in the last week or whatever has taken off that like blanket travel ban, right? So it kind of gives you a little bit more comfort knowing that they're like, yeah, it's okay to get back out there now. And Megan and I have been doing a lot more. We've been traveling within Nova Scotia, but I think we've been visiting a lot more like smaller places and not going to the big cities and like doing more like smaller place travel so that you're social distance from other people. It's not a super crowded place and you can kind of do your own thing. A lot of like nature travel, hiking and that sort of thing has kind of been what we're doing and probably what we'll do for the next little bit as well.
Is it a thought in your mind or a worry about the sort of, because I feel like there's going to be a mass rush for everybody to travel and everyone's going to like,
I'm going to be right in it, Jenny.
Yeah,
I
know,
we're going to love it. And I'm going to like just flail my arms about and be like, I am here and I need to see things and get out of my way. But yes, I think people are pent up. I think people have saved money that they want to spend. And I think it's going to happen. And I mean, I thought it was going to be 2021. It wasn't. Thank you, Delta. I think 2022, barring, of course, caveat to everything, barring another like mutation or something, I do think it'll be 2022. And to go back to your question about what the thin line is, I think the vaccine is the thin line. I really do. I think that that is the line that now, even here in Nova Scotia or wherever, if you are, you're good. If you aren't, these are what's going to have to happen, testing, etc. And I think countries are going to live and die, to their detriment or not by are you vaccinated or not. And I think that that's the line. I really do. And I think people that are vaccinated will have a little bit more freedom, whether that means like needing booster shots or whatever. I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't really know. But I think that that will be sort of the line on where things go, in my opinion, in terms of who can get back out there and how freely you can get back out there.
Yeah, it's an interesting stipulation, and I'm not going to, ask the vaccination question here today, but I wonder how sustainable that is going to be in the long run, really. I
don't think it will be. I don't think it's a long-term play. Like, I do think it's here for a bit, and I personally don't mind showing my QR code or whatever. Like, if I want some nachos at the lower deck, which is a nearby spot, I want to go. Like, I don't mind that, but I hope it's not forever. Like, even though I don't mind saying, even though I am vaccinated, I hope we don't have to do this forever. I don't want that to be the world or the life that I can live in. So I certainly hope not, but I do think we all need to be prepared for it for a while. So I guess that's sort of the way I feel about it. I mean, who knows what could happen tomorrow, but I just think it's here for a bit. But I personally hope it's not forever either. I don't want this life.
Yeah. Do you think? Yeah, I wonder if the experience of traveling is gonna change too. Will it go back to normal? I don't know. What is the normal? Is it going to change? Like, are you going to get onto a flight now and it's way back when they had smoking sections and non-smoking sections in the plane, and now are you going to get on a flight and say, well, I don't want to sit next to this person because they're not wearing a mask, or I don't want to sit in a, what a mess.
I think it'll have to be blanket. Like, I think they'll have to be either you do or you don't, you are or you aren't. I mean, maybe eventually a hybrid model, but that will be messy.
Yeah, definitely going to be messy for sure. I mean, I think too, because so many people are just, as you said, they haven't traveled in a long time. The process of getting back into the steps that you need to take to travel on a regular basis, right? It's quite a feat to get ready for the airport and get all your stuff and make sure you have everything, and now to sort of navigate that in a sort of a very confusing environment with a lot of people around, when people haven't been out of their homes even, for quite a bit. They've been working from home. They've not been even, going around out in their cities. And, so to take on a huge step like traveling, you know, I wonder what like the mental health space is going to look like that for travelers. I worry about people getting overwhelmed or having anxiety attacks or panic attacks on planes too when we start this venture of, getting back to mass travel.
Yeah. I think that if you're not comfortable with not booking your own travel, that using a travel agent is the way to go because they have the up-to-date information. Like they will tell you what you need to do, like what you need for COVID testing before you go or whatever, like what you need to take with you for proof or whatever. They are these are professionals, right? And they have the information. And Megan and I have had a travel agent on our show, and she kind of said like things can change when you're mid-air. Like, you didn't need a negative COVID test when you left, and then you get there and they've changed the rules. Like, so having
Right.
someone that you can call like back home or whatever, like having that person as kind of your wayfinding point that can help you navigate this whole new world, I think is going to be key. And I know that going forward, I will be using a travel agent, and
Yeah.
I'm comfortable booking travel, and have done quite a bit,
Right.
but I just like the idea of having somebody at home that I can call or email or whatever and ask questions, and she can tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So I think that people should use that service. They're free for the most part. Like this is what they're there for. They're paid by the travel suppliers, and it's just a really great service. And I think people got away from it in the internet age. People started booking their own travel, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not have someone do it for you? And then if you have to change something, you don't have to call the airline and be on hold for 4 hours. They'll do it for you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I think that's a great point in terms of if you're anxious to get back out there, because you're right. If you know you have someone to rely on, it makes a big difference. And in terms of mental health on the other side, I guess is the way that I'm thinking of it for me, is it's only going to help my mental health. It is only going to help me
Yes.
to know that I can get on a plane and go visit another destination. So I'm kind of the other side, not that I won't be anxious and not that I won't have like a million questions running through my head or all of those things, but in a really strange masochistic way, I'm looking forward to it. Like I
Yeah.
can't wait to sort of feel that again. And for me and the way that I feel, and I know my husband's the same, for both of our mental health, it's what I want. So it's for me the flip side. So there's probably two sides, and some people are a mix of both. And I think that I think it'll be interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, it- it's one of those things where you wonder how you're going to be received too, right? On the other side, you talk about the other side, and everybody should be out. We should be at least outdoors. Even if we're not going traveling, we should be at least
Yeah.
outdoors, like you mentioned before, Jen, hiking or trekking or going for walks or
Yeah.
camping or road tripping, whatever, being outside. But are you worried at all about how you will be received in another country when you travel there? I mean, it's great to go there, but is that ever a thought that comes
I wasn't,
to mind?
Jenny, but now
But
maybe
now that
I
I brought it up, okay.
honestly, I'm very selfish. I was just thinking about how I'm going to feel. I don't know. I never really thought about it. I guess it's something to consider. I mean, Jen and I in the podcast have talked about sort of over traveled places and et cetera. And so those are the things I think of, is to not go places. Like there's some spots in Hawaii now where they just don't want people to come. So it's kind of the way I think about it in terms of over travel, but I haven't really thought about it in terms of COVID. Maybe I will now, but Jen, has that something that's crossed your mind?
It is and it isn't. Like, I mean, here in Nova Scotia, when we were like in the bubble and like not letting people in, and then they kind of like burst the bubble and people start coming in, like some people were nasty and leaving like nasty notes on people's like cars who have a license plate that's not from the Maritimes. And like, so I think
Really?
Yes.
there was some very unmaritime like behavior.
Welcome to Atlantic Canada, everybody.
And are you, Jen, are you in Halifax too, or?
I'm not. I'm an hour and a half outside the city. I was in Halifax, and then I moved back to my hometown of Liverpool. So I'm about an hour
Liverpool.
and a half
Okay, yeah.
from Halifax. So And I think it was probably worse in the small towns than it was in the city because
Yeah.
small
Sure.
town, small mind sometimes. But
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, I think that like Megan said, there are places that are like, please don't come here. Like we're, over tourism. There's too many people, our hospitals are overrun, we have no resources. Like rental cars have been a huge hard thing to find rental cars. And so
Oh, really?
yeah, it's definitely been challenging for people who are trying to get rental cars, especially I think in the US. But
What about the B&B situation in in Nova Scotia? Because
I
I
mean,
know a lot. Well, you guys had a really unique situation. Like your real estate just skyrocketed for a minute and a half there. Like
crazy.
you
Yeah.
went from like your real estate almost doubled. Like you went from 150 for an average house to like
Oh yeah.
380 and above, right?
More. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, some of them went for a million. Some houses went for $1 million. And it
Nuts.
was an all-out bidding war, and people were coming down and staying at B&Bs just to get the
It
14.
still is.
And
We're
it's
still in it, Jenny. Like, I mean, Jen sold her house. Luckily, she got very fortunate to be able to sell it during all of that and then move to an old, beautiful home. And that's like a dream realized for sure. And then there's someone like me and my husband who are middle class people, but we live in an apartment and we're just sort of starting to think about it somewhere in our 40s. I don't know what we're thinking is maybe potentially a house, but now is not the time. Like people now, because of the pandemic, I was going to say the COVID, the pandemic,
It's the
they can
COVID.
the COVID, they can work from anywhere. A lot of
Yeah.
people now, so why not make Toronto money on a Halifax budget? So I think that that's sort of been the mindset. So we are just holding off. I don't need a bidding war. I don't want to write your house a love letter. I don't
Yeah.
want to be I don't want to be the 20th bid in line.
Sure.
So yeah, it's been an interesting turn of events in terms of real estate, but hopefully that knocks off in the next year or two so I can get myself home.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about um, being in the bubble, traveling within your area, and sort of some of the great things that you kind of explored and discovered sort of on the East Coast. That, I mean, I'm sure there's always some spot that we haven't discovered in our own backyard, right? So tell
Mhm.
me a little bit about that.
yeah, we did. We've done a lot of places that we haven't really done before in Nova Scotia. And I know Megan, you've done more because, like she said, we did buy a gigantic old house that we are renovating. So that has been taking up a lot of our time and energy. But um, it's been really great. And I know, like personally, we've done a lot of South Shore, closest to where we live. So
Hmm.
Shelburne, Nova Scotia is a gem, and people do
Beautiful.
not go there. Like it's such an amazing spot, and we really love it there. So we've been there a couple of times this summer.
Hmm.
Last summer we did Digby, Long Island, and Briar Island, and did whale watching, which
Oh,
like
nice.
amazing experience, and I would highly recommend that to anybody. And then last fall we did the Cabot Trail, which is absolutely beautiful any time of year, but especially in the fall. And we did a lot of hiking, and that was really great. We stayed in one of those camping domes for the first
Oh,
time.
yeah,
So
those are
that's
cool. I saw those.
super
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, it's a really fun experience. So again, it was like someone's huge property. They have like 5 camping domes. We barely saw the other people that were staying there. Like
Right.
it was really nice. And so yeah, that's kind of the highlights of the places we've been. Megan's been a little bit more over the place.
Yeah, we have traveled a lot, but mostly in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. We didn't venture to PEI and we didn't venture to Newfoundland. But Nova Scotia, we saw so much more than we'd seen before, especially the French shore. So down
Mhm.
Digby, Matagan, that side, just beautiful province. Like we are
Yeah.
so lucky to live here. And we did a lot throughout Nova Scotia in June of this year. My husband's from Cape Breton anyway, but we normally just go and visit his parents, so we don't see the rest of it.
Mhm.
So this year, what we did is we integrated them into our trip and then spent the rest of the time sort of in the Highlands. Unfortunately, we missed because now up near the big lodge there, the Celtic Lodge, there's now a gondola that you can take up into the
Oh,
mountains, and
really?
It just opened like a month ago, so we missed it, but I am dying to do that. And apparently you can do that for a pretty great rate in conjunction with a helicopter ride as well.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Oh, no way. That's
I
cool.
need to do that. The
Yeah.
Highlands don't even feel like Nova Scotia. Like
They
Cape
don't.
Breton is incredible. Like it is such a must see. And also
Mhm.
the other fun thing, and we just did one of our last podcasts, we talked about sort of southern New Brunswick, because New Brunswick for us, and they've had a reputation of a drive-through province. So I need to get through you so I can get to somewhere else.
Right,
So
right.
I'm going to Maine, or I'm going to Quebec or Ontario and throughout. So like, let's get this over with. But we actually have spent like in the last, I guess, 18 days over the last 2 summers in New Brunswick, just exploring. And it has also so much to offer. We've been really fortunate. I think the rest of Canada looked at us with our bubble and we're a little bit, I don't know how people felt, but I felt resentment toward the bubble. I'm not going to lie.
I think that's a fair statement. I think that's a fair
Yeah,
statement. I think even
and we
people
were
that
really
were,
fortunate.
I think that even people wanting to travel to the province were sort of feeling that same, I was meant to travel there a couple of times, during all this, and it just kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed, the bubble. And it's like, you kind of give up, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think it's a fair statement. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we felt that and we understood it too. And the rules here were really strict. Like we
Yeah.
had our cases low, honestly, for most of the pandemic. And I guess it's because of the rules, but it also kept a lot of people out that had family here. There's so many people that have moved away from the Atlantic provinces that just wanted to come home and see family. So we felt that too.
Mhm.
But we had to exist within it and take advantage of what we could. Otherwise, I could go to the park in my neighborhood, but that gets old. So I think
Yeah,
it was good to be able to explore.
Yeah.
absolutely. How do you think that's being in the bubble has affected the financial aspect of Nova Scotia and bringing that piece in?
I think that, I mean, obviously we've lost a lot of tourism dollars. We've also lost 2 cruise ship seasons now, which are huge
Mm.
for
Huge.
Halifax and for Sydney. So
Because you guys
it's
have a lot
been
of small businesses too, right? A
exactly.
lot
We
of,
do.
yeah, which
I
is,
think that I think that for the most part, Nova Scotians have really like stepped up in supporting small businesses. Like I know Megan and I have, and I think a lot of people have. Like a lot of people are going to eat out at local restaurants and you're ordering takeout from local restaurants,
right.
shopping at local stores. Like supporting local became a really huge thing here, and I think it was before, but it is even more important to all of us now. I think the biggest thing for me right now is that it's affected our flight options because we stopped flights from coming in for so long that now there are very limited options to get out, which I hope that they'll come back. But it sucks looking at it right now. Everything basically now is through Toronto, which if you're heading to Europe is extremely frustrating to go like 2 hours the wrong way and then overseas. But hopefully we'll rebound from that in the next little bit.
Yeah.
I love
Book
that you,
Condor. Just as a tip.
Yeah.
That's what we use out of Halifax, and they are direct to Frankfurt. Frankfurt's their base, and that's what we are taking. And I think, there's so few options like that now that it's such a relief to see something, much to Jen's point. Why do I want to go that way when I want to go that way? So it's very frustrating. So I really do hope that bounces back as well.
yeah, and just to get back to your point too about supporting local, I think that's one of the major things that I've seen expand in such a huge degree this past year is a lot of people starting their own businesses. I mean, on Instagram's been really big for that. And there's a couple of really great local businesses in Nova Scotia that I love too. Mana Clay is one of them. Sarsaparilla Knits. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but
Oh,
they're fantastic. Check them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all like handmade, hand knit wear, and it's just really fantastic. And it's great to see. And Mana Clay she does her own earrings and things like that. It's really great to see people sort of not not give up their spirit for continuing forward, even though we've been sort of stuck in this sludge of
purgatory.
Yeah.
It's great to see that people have been able to still spark their interests and their passions in other ways. So I love that you mentioned, supporting local, and I think that's a huge thing. And I think it just really shows too the communities coming together, and trying to make it through, the best of times and the worst of times, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely. I wanted to touch a little bit on, you mentioned right at the top of the show, Megan, about this not being sort of your industry. You're in the finance industry, which I love, because I always say I'm a huge proponent of people having lives outside their careers. I'm a therapist full time during the day, and the show is my creative side,
Right.
my creative pastime. So I love that. So talk a little bit about being, in the finance sector, and how that you've noticed changes as it relates to travel, maybe in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as much sort of in branch helping people in the day to day. So I'm a recruiter, so it's a little bit of outside of all that. But one thing I've noticed in terms of travel or immigration or whatever is a lot of people want to come and live here, and I think that that's been something we've been really fortunate about. So helping add to the economy. The population of Nova Scotia needs to do nothing but grow, and so the people that I interact with and I talk to on a weekly basis are people that have made their way to this tiny little Canadian province, and we're so fortunate to have them. So I think that's the impact of sort of this pandemic overall, is people sort of searching, even though they probably were before, but searching for those places in the world essentially where they are able to find prosperity, kind people for the most part, and jobs. And I think all of those things have been really impacted by that. I do know, and I mentioned this earlier, that in terms of, and Jen could probably even talk about this a little bit more, her blog is finance focused, but people haven't had anywhere to spend their money. So I just think it hasn't shown itself yet.
Well, except for Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean,
let's not even go there. Yeah. So
not gonna lie, I've got a few boxes laying around.
So to its full extent, in terms of travel, I don't think we've seen it yet. Like, I've seen a few people on my Facebook and they've traveled, and I'm not even jealous. I'm just so thrilled that people are out there doing it. I'm like, go, like, see the world. And I'm so pumped, but I just think there's so much more of that to come in terms of money in the bank. I know for us, we've not had anywhere. We've spent around here sort of Airbnbs or bed and breakfasts, those kind of things. But on a grander scale, we've just been saving the whole time, and I am itching to spend it.
Well, what are some of the major key points that you cover, Jen, in terms of finances and travel? Like, because that's one of the big things I think for a lot of people, is people who do want to travel, it's always the financial piece that kind of gets them hung up, right? And it's like, well, we don't have money to go away, or we have to save for so long. Like, what are some of the key things to sort of consider when people are looking at travel?
Right. So I think that the first thing for a lot of people is making it a financial priority. So, not ordering from Amazon every day or every week or whatever.
I didn't say every day. Did I say every day? It's not me, not me. I didn't order
I think she took it personally. I think she took it personally.
Cancel the order. Cancel it.
Making it a priority. Like, Megan and I, we both just have a line in our budget that is travel. And I think automated savings are key, because if it's something that you have to go in there and manually transfer that money from your main bank account to a savings account, that you'll just forget to do it, or you'll spend all of your money before you
forget to do it.
Or whatever. So automated savings are your best friend for everything, in my opinion, but also for travel. And even when you're not planning a trip, just keep socking money away. And, if it's $25 or if it's $100 or if it's $500, like, it all adds up. And I think one of the things that we've kind of had to do over the last 2 years is kind of redefine travel for ourselves. Like, travel is not just getting on an airplane. Travel is also going to the next community or going 2 hours away. You kind of have to redefine travel, and it might take you 5 years to go to, Disney World or whatever, but maybe you can go, to the next community and just spend a weekend and save the rest of the money. So I think that is kind of the key for most people. Obviously,
Yeah.
paying off your debt. I'm a huge fan of people paying off their debt. So
Absolutely.
having that not hanging over your head is definitely great as well.
Yeah, we actually had a whole episode. I think it might have been our first episode
Our
ever
first episode
on how to save money for travel and travel on a budget. We sort of talk about all the tips and tricks, and I have to wholeheartedly agree with Jen in terms of the automatic withdrawals.
Mhm.
And I think that the other tip about just keeping it going, we didn't used to do that. We used to save, travel, and a few months later, we're like, oh, I guess we should get back to saving for next year's
Right.
trip.
Yeah.
And then after Iceland, in 2018, we're just like, well, why don't we keep this going? It just makes so much sense. And that's been honestly a game changer for us, because it's not that we don't notice the money. Don't get me wrong. We're not rich. But when it comes out and it's part of your regular budget, makes
Right.
all the difference. And budget is different for everyone. So whatever that means for you.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up the point about redefining travel. I think when most people think travel, they think it has to be some big trip and you have to travel to, like a European country or somewhere far away, and it's on a plane, as you said, and it doesn't always need to be that way. It could be a weekend away at a cottage, or a hiking weekend away, or a week away at wherever, the
New
next
Brunswick,
town
if you
over,
want.
the next town over. Yeah, where there's different restaurants and different things to do in a different city. It doesn't always have to be like a distance driven trip,
Right.
which I think is really important, because I think the whole idea, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, but the whole idea of travel for me is one, part and parcel of the travel is an educational piece. You're discovering new places and new things, but a large majority of that is just being refreshed, getting out of your space and your everyday zone, and having the chance to relax and not worry about the everyday things, and just get refreshed and renewed.
Yeah.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think Jen and I have talked about this before, but I think so many of the world's problems could be helped to be solved by people experiencing other people's cultures, seeing how other people live, understanding what goes on in other parts of the world. I think travel is so important to sort of expand that part of us. And I think we become kinder people, more understanding. I think there's so many different intricate aspects to travel that people are like, oh, travel's great. But it's great for so many reasons, whether it's food, whether it's, like you said, Jenny, to refresh, whatever it is. But there's also that piece of experiencing something that, is outside of your realm that could help you be a better person.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think like travel has made me a better person, a more confident person. Like I know that, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to get in a situation where I get lost or I don't know what to do. And I trust myself that I know how to figure it out, or I know like how to get help or whatever. Like, I just feel like I'm a better person because I have traveled.
Yeah, that's a great point too, is developing those life skills and that character. I am the first person to get lost anywhere. I will get lost walking from my bathroom to my bedroom. I, I have zero sense of direction. Okay. I am what you call an easy target.
Yeah.
I will get lost very easily.
But you're self-aware. That's a big thing.
But I have been fortunate enough to travel quite a bit in my lifetime, and will continue to travel some more. But it's a great experience in terms of being able to figure things out. And you're right, you have to sort of, when you're in a whole new country, in a whole different country, you have to sort of pull up your socks and go, okay, let me find out where I am, how I can get the hell out of there real quick and go in this direction
Right.
and just find stuff, especially when you're in a country where, English is not the first language. How do you navigate that and find things that you need, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great point and a great skill. I want to ask you to eat separately or together, whatever. Where your favorite place was to travel? I know you mentioned Iceland a few times. I have not yet been there, but
Gotta go.
you gotta go. Yeah, absolutely. That Blue Lagoon spa thing. Oh,
Yeah, we've both been. Yeah,
looks
it's
so good.
I don't want to say Iceland because we've already mentioned it and it feels like a total beating of a dead horse. I wish, this is what I've said ever since I've been there, and it was only 2018. I wish I had known and could have a crystal ball to see when toward the end of my life is, and I could have done it then, because now every place is like, oh, it's good, but it's
It
not
doesn't
Iceland.
compare, right?
And
You measure
it's
it
a
up. Yeah.
shame. And I do feel like Austria and Switzerland and whatnot will help with that. I'm very excited. But I just think that the raw natural beauty.
One. Sorry, we just froze a little bit, but you're saying Austria's.
Yeah, I think that will be helpful in terms of maybe getting over Iceland a little bit and being able to maybe stop comparing everywhere to there. But
Right.
the raw beauty, the magic, so much of our time spent there was literally by ourselves. We have pictures of ourselves stopped along the highway. I'm sitting in the road getting pictures. Like there are no people there.
Yeah.
And it's mostly just you and some sheep and some puffins. And it was honestly just the most, even though it was the most expensive place I've ever been.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Try
Especially for food.
$125 for 3 drinks at a bar. I mean, those kind of things, but it doesn't matter. It was worth it. And that so far is it for me.
And who doesn't love puffins?
No.
Right?
Everyone must love a puff. Although I saw more in Ireland. So I
Oh.
thought that Iceland was the height of the puffins. And then we went to Skellig Michael that was in Star Wars, where Luke was in the Star Wars movies. We actually visited there. And I mean, they buzzed us. There were puffins. It was insane.
Crazy.
So funny. I would say for me, like Iceland's probably first. I've been there twice. I went with my stepmom in 2013, and then my husband and I visited again as part of our honeymoon in 2015. But I would say besides Iceland, London, England was definitely our favorite place. We went there, we spent a week, and we were like, okay, well, let's just move here now. Like we felt so at home. And, the apartment that we rented was in a very nice part of London that we could never afford if we moved there. So I'm sure we'd have a very different experience if we actually moved. But we both felt really at home there, and I really loved it. We kind of got into like a routine where, we were going out and doing stuff during the day and coming back to our apartment and cooking. So it kind of felt like we lived there in a weird way.
Very nice.
And watching like British TV shows, which we still love to do now here back at home. And it's kind of like a little bit of nostalgia for our trip there. And yeah, I would say if you haven't been to Iceland, you should go. Although Megan and I talked about on our episode about over tourism, Reykjavik is experiencing over tourism. So we think you should go and then get out of the city and explore some of the amazing, amazing nature that it has to offer.
Yeah, Sweden is also on my list. It looks so beautiful there.
It does.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk a little bit about your podcast, and then we'll play a few little games here. But tell me a little bit about your podcast, and tell the viewers and listeners about your blog and how that plays in. I've had a chance to listen to some of your episodes on your podcast and really enjoyed it. So
we're the Travel Mug podcast, and we talk about a lot of travel, obviously. We talk a lot about places that we've been, a lot of Nova Scotia, since that's mostly where we've been in the last year and a bit since we started the podcast. We also do a lot of like general travel tips and tricks like about packing and choosing accommodations and saving for travel and budgeting for travel and planning a road trip and all of those different things. And we've had some really lovely guests come on and talk about using a travel agent and that sort of stuff. So it's a really fun podcast for Megan and I to do because we both just love to talk about travel. So we hope that people get a lot out of it. We're both passionate about ethical travel and traveling with a conscience, and we definitely hope that people will go to places and leave them a little bit better than the way they found them.
Yeah, and it's always, I think, helpful for people to listen in to someone who's experienced it, firsthand before they book it as well. Like those tips and tricks are really, really helpful, for people who are just starting out to travel or who have probably traveled quite a bit in the past, but maybe not, explored some of the things that you're privy to. So it's always a huge help. Well, let's get into our little bit of our games here. And the first thing we're going to do is talk about 3 things not to say at the airport.
Now, Jen had some good ideas for this. I'm going to let her go. I loved all of her ideas.
I think the number one thing right now is not to say anything about being sick. Like, don't even joke about it.
Right.
Don't even.
If you have to sneeze, just die instead. Like, don't even sneeze. People don't want to hear it.
There's options. Yeah.
I think the obvious is like bomb. Like, don't say anything about bombs.
Yeah.
Don't say anything about your sneakers being a bomb. Don't even think the word. Because
this drink tastes like it has chemicals in it. I don't know.
No.
Don't.
Nothing about white powders. Nothing. No.
No.
I got a few on my list here, and one of them is, will it go off in the air?
Yeah.
I don't want to say that. Can't say that.
Don't say that. No.
Were we supposed to go through customs? Probably not a good thing. And last on my list here, valid, fair enough. Is all of the alcohol free when we board? Not really want to say.
See, that goes hand in hand with mine, which is, sorry, that middle seat's ours. I just have to put my baby on my lap first. Like that's for me. And then the alcohol question would follow. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Bless, people who travel with their kids. It's harder for them than it is for anyone else. And I recognize that, but people still cringe and get, distraught by the whole thing. So the alcohol question, I think, could be valid in certain situations.
I mean, alcohol is valid. You can't go wrong there.
Correct.
Let's play our 3-question draw, our famous 3-question draw we have on every show. I have 3 questions. I will ask them rapid round. Here we go. My first 3 questions, my only 3 questions for you ladies. Here we go. First question, best drive-through meal on a road trip?
Oh my gosh. Oh
my gosh. We always go to Wendy's. So I guess I have to say Wendy's. That is like our classic road trip. We don't go any other time besides when we're on road trips. So I guess that's what I have to say because that's where I go.
Mine's Five Guys.
Five Guys. Never had that.
Best burgers. I don't eat meat anymore, but I remember them so fondly.
Are you I'm a vegan. Are you a vegan?
No, I'm pescatarian, so I eat a little bit of fish, and then nothing else. And Jen pretty much doesn't eat much meat either. We're a very low meat podcast.
Low meat podcast. A low meat podcast brought to you by Travel Mugs.
Yeah.
Now this one is super important. You might need a minute to think about it, and that's okay. Here we go. Kim and Kanye or J-Lo and Ben?
J-Lo and Ben. I don't
J-Lo and Ben.
Time. I don't
need J-Lo and Ben.
I mean, this Kim girl you speak of, I don't even know who that is. I feel like I don't want to know anything about her.
Very low key. Very low key. Yeah. Bungee jumping off cliffs or canoeing?
Oh God, canoeing, 100%. There's no way I'm going to bungee jump off a cliff.
No, we're not. We're a bit risk takers, but we're not going that far. What about you? Would you tell us what?
So I'm the bungee jumper. I'm the.
There has to be one of us.
Yeah, I see the cliff and I run up to it and go, "Ooh, this will be fun." Yeah.
I love that about you.
Yeah, I
Love
just,
that.
that's total freedom to me. And you see those, people sort of hanging in midair by a piece of dental floss. That's me. Yeah.
Bouncy dental floss. I love that. There have to be risk takers in this world, or we would not advance as a species. So
Exactly. 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 Did you have some questions for me?
We do. Yes.
Fabulous.
Okay.
Right.
My first one is, would you rather only travel to places that you can drive to or only travel places that you have to fly to?
Okay, see, this is a tough one because I enjoy driving. I'm not a fan of flying, believe it or not. I'm
oh.
not a fan of flying. I don't really like being in the plane and being confined to the plane. However, that would not stop me from going to somewhere I wanted to go.
Yeah.
So I'd have to say I'll go with the flying if it comes
Yeah,
down
me
to it.
too. Me too.
Yeah. That's also what I would choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My next one is, what fictional world would you live in?
What fictional world would I live in? Oh my gosh, there's so many elements to that.
I know.
Like just something I would create myself?
Well, no, like a movie or book
Oh,
or
like a
like
movie.
Narnia or
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I think it would have to be probably that enchanted forest that Maleficent lived in. But
Oh.
when she, turned good,
Yeah.
let's say, quote
Yes.
unquote good, and it was all sparkly and fairy and luscious green, and everyone was friendly and nice, and there was lots of love and bleh, all that stuff.
It sounds delightful. I think that's a great choice. When I thought about it, I was like, I want to live at the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. I want to work there with the whole gang. That's the world I would choose.
I love it.
Just saying.
I would go to Hogwarts. That's where
Hogwarts, yeah, good
Mm,
choice.
good one.
Good choice.
Thanks. And my last question is, if you could have any job in the world and salary didn't matter, what would you do?
I would probably be doing what I'm doing now. Yep, I would do this.
Wow.
I would do the show.
Yeah.
I would run my clinic. I would do the show and probably delve a little bit more into acting because that's really a love and a passion. Yeah. So yeah, I would do
You
that.
are living your best life then. That is not an answer I ever expect anyone to say. So kudos to you.
Yeah, awesome.
I, on the other hand, did not think that.
Well,
I
life is what you make of it. You gotta.
It is.
Yep.
See, I would own a hobby farm and
Mm.
I would do like tours for like, I guess, children or adults. But they would come and visit the animals that live happily ever after on my farm.
I love that. I love that. I'm a big fan of goats. Love goats.
Yes, I love a goat.
Who doesn't love a goat? Goats and puffins is where it's at.
It really is. Jen, what about you?
I would probably be a writer or also I would love to be a dancer in a Disney World parade.
Oh.
That is what I'm talking about.
Isn't Jen just the sweetest fucking thing we've ever met?
I think it all the time, and I think she's way too cute, that one. And
Oh
I would
my
love to
gosh.
see you in a parade.
I know.
I think that should be on our life list of making that happen for you, Jen. I think we need to band together. If we can support local businesses, we can support Jen in being a Disney dancer.
It is now on my goals list. I just jotted it down.
Well, rumor has it, ladies, you have a tip of the day.
We do. Megan, take us through our tip of the day.
Sure. So I think Jen mentioned it earlier that we sort of really try to travel consciously. So I think our tip of the day is to sort of make sure that no matter how you travel, whether it's a road trip, whether it's on a budget, whether it's luxury travel or where you go, that you're respecting the place that you're visiting. So it's culture, it's people, it's environment, it's animals, everything. And the wise words of Anthony Bourdain, who like I miss every single day, be a traveler, not a tourist. And I think, like Jen mentioned earlier, leave the place if you can, at least the same, or better than you found it, and like take your trash home with you. So I think that I think just try to make the world a better place no matter where you go.
Yeah, do you consider your carbon footprint in that too when you think about being a conscious traveler?
Yeah, we did chat about that on our we have 2 episodes on ethical travel, and one of them kind of talks about environmental um impacts of travel. And so we definitely talked about, taking a train versus taking a plane if that's possible, or using public transport or walking. And it definitely does factor into my choice. And actually, in 2020, the beginning of 2020, I made a big goal, as I usually do, to offset my flying carbon footprint by donating to. We have a great organization in Canada that I can't remember the name of right now, but they will plant trees in order to offset your carbon footprint for travel. And of course, then I did not end up flying anywhere in 2020. So I
Take my money anyway.
I kind of accomplished that goal. But I will in the future plan to, whenever I fly, to donate enough to offset the carbon footprint
That's
of
fabulous.
yeah.
Love that. I love that. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. I've really had a great time talking about travel and what you do. And just go ahead, take all the time you need, promote the heck out of yourself. Where can people find you? Where are you on social media? Go for it.
So we're on Facebook and Instagram at the Travel Mug Podcast. And we have a website, travelmugpodcast.com. We also have a YouTube channel. We just started recording the video of ourselves to put on our YouTube channel of our episodes. So you can go and see our pretty faces there while we chat about travel related things. And yeah, we're just kind of generally around. I'm also at Will Save for Travel on Instagram and Facebook as well, and willsavefortravel.com.
And we're going to be on Pinterest as well, I think, coming up.
Yes.
So we're doing a few other things in terms of enhancing the website and whatnot, especially come the new year. So stay tuned for those changes. So we're pretty excited about that stuff as well.
That's fantastic. And just tell me quickly, how did you guys come up with the name Travel Mugs? Because I love that. It's so cute.
That was Megan and I had a Google Doc that we just bounced around ideas for like a while. And Megan actually came up with Travel Mug Podcast.
I don't know.
And we but it works so perfectly because we both love coffee.
Oh yes, hello.
And we both, the environmental aspect of traveling with a travel mug we love. Yeah. So it works. It is us. I love it.
It is for sure. And it just came to me one night and I'm like, I think that makes a lot of sense for what we're trying to accomplish, but I don't know, I didn't consciously think of it. I guess it had to be like one of those things that just appeared and that actually occurred. So I was like, and she's super agreeable, but I think it also really did work for what we were trying to do.
I love that. Well, make sure you guys follow Travel Mugs on all social media, YouTube, Instagram, and website. Want to make sure that everybody knows they can comment, share, like, subscribe to this channel, Wake Up with Jenny and Friends. Thanks, ladies, so much for joining me. I had a great time, and it's been really fun talking about travel, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great week.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.